Empathy, or the ability to understand others' emotions, is generally seen as a good thing, but there can be a sinister side. We welcome registered psychologist Lisa Rowbottom to talk about identifying this. So, Lisa, can you explain dark empathy?
So I think to understand dark empathy, you have to understand that we separate as psychologists empathy into two categories.
Okay.
One is more of an affect empathy, so I can feel what you're feeling, whereas the other piece is a cognitive empathy where I can understand how it makes you feeling, but I'm not necessarily experiencing it. So if I have cognitive empathy on its own, then I can comprehend your emotions and I can manipulate them or use them or, get them or work with them to get you to do what I want you to do. Interesting.
Okay, so what do they do with this intuition if you're using empathy in a dark way?
Generally, people will use some form of manipulation to get what they want to get or to get where they want to be, but without the comprehension of how it actually emotionally feels for you. So I could decide that I want to drive my friend's car. And so instead of just, asking them, and if they're like, well, no, I need to go to my mother's for her funeral, I might be angry and I might be like, well, and then I'm going to lay a guilt trip on you, because I know it's going to make you feel bad and give me what I want, even though I should maybe feel what it would feel like to have someone ask you to borrow their car when you needed to go to your mother's funeral, for example.
Right. Okay, so how do we recognize this? Because this can be tricky in friends or acquaintances where, it feels like they're the victim or you're trying to help them out, but really they're twisting you around. So how can you identify this and recognize when someone's using this on you?
So I think that the most important thing to recognize is you're not going to see it right away. So people who use this trait are very charismatic. They can feel very compassionate, but they're really not. They can be really self-deprecating, interestingly enough, and people will identify them as manipulative. But I think the most important thing is in these relationships, if you're feeling anxious and uncomfortable, even though maybe everybody else thinks this person is amazing, and you just can't figure out why you can't feel like you're secure in this relationship, there's probably something going on. Interesting.
Now, is this something you can recognize in yourself, that you're using empathy sort of in a manipulative way?
Most of us have both types of empathy, but if you only have one type and you've never experienced the other, we all assume everybody interacts with the world and thinks about the world the same way we do. So people don't necessarily walk around saying, oh, I'm going to use my dark empathetic trait today and I'm going to manipulate you. It's just part of their repertoire of interacting with the world. So it's hard to recognize in yourself.
So if you're in a relationship, whether it's a friend relationship or something else with someone who is a dark empath, how do you recommend talking to them about how they're treating you?
I think the best thing is to keep your boundaries very firm.
Okay.
And in terms of having that discussion with them, depending on the type of relationship, you may want to seek out professional help before trying to have that conversation with this individual yourself, because you might need some external input to kind of help them see what's happening.
Okay. Very interesting. Well, you are a pro. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us more about this. If you'd like to learn more, you can find Lisa at Sojourn Psychology.ca. It's actually sojo.ca.